show here. So episode 12, this would be.
This would be 12.
Again, brought to you by Quasar Science. So the wonderful lights above us here. And OP Seat. Our beautiful chairs that we're sitting in. And the luxury of our butts.
Yep. Sling Studio.
And Sling Studio, who's allowing us to piece this thing together here on the fly as we're doing it.
That's
right.
right.
We had a great time at Game On Expo again with using that tech. So today, we're very excited, talking to Chris Wood.
Yeah!
Chris, we'll get into it, but he is a master artist, first and foremost. You'll see some of his work around the show.
We're surrounded by Big Chris, man. Yeah, and Poppy, yeah.
And I mean, again, like all episodes, we're going to be diving into the origin stories of our favorite creators and people in this industry of entertainment. So we're going to be diving into Chris's origin story, and hopefully he'll let us explore some of those depths. People come out knowing a bit more about Chris and knowing a bit more about the process of being an artist and what it's like. So that's the intro. I know you guys are both biting at the bit to talk to Chris. You guys want to open up with a juicy question?
Juicy question.
Right out of the gate, right?
Yeah. Right out of the gate.
Yes,
Thanks for being here, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for having me.
Quick intro on what you do for the people who don't know.
Oh, man, I draw pictures. That's literally, I scribble on pieces of paper and scan it in. That's literally what I do.
I love it.
So I'm telling you, man.
That's literally what I do. I just scribble.
Every time I talk to Chris or anybody talks to me about Chris, it's always like another project that Chris has worked on that I just had no idea. So my intro is just he's an artist, man. He's a fantastic artist, amazing artist of murals, digital, tattoos, everything. You got it. So yeah, I need to know more. Basically, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, dude. Where did it? So take us to in the origin story, in the spirit of the origin story.
The baby Chris.
Yeah, man. Like when you were little Chris, right? You're big Chris. Like when did you get the bug, man? What was it like? What got you into art?
I was 4'2" when I was born.
Right on, powerful, Mama Wood.
Right. But no, Mama and Papa Wood. They're both wildly creative. They're artists and musicians. My mom has her master's degree in art education, and my dad's a painter and a musician and a scientist, and so just started making art literally.
And a scientist? What kind of scientist?
Oh, he's if there's 100 people in the room, he's the smartest person in the room. It's just kind of the bottom line. It's the reality of it. But he's an amateur astronomer, and
that's awesome.
So yeah, absolutely.
So what got you? Was there a defining moment where you're like, I can do this professionally?
Well, so I did my first magazine cover for a Dungeons and Dragons magazine when I was 11. And I just, it was my first paid gig, and I just thought, seeing that first check even as a kid.
11.
Dude, that's
11.
crazy.
11. Whoa, back it up. How did you get the gig? Well, cover, dude.
It was through the Mesa Public Library, which was really cool. But yeah, my mom tells a story that when I was young, maybe 4 or 5, she had written out the letters of the alphabet for me, and the idea was that I was going to trace those letters and write out the alphabet, but instead I turned them all into these creatures and animals. So
that's amazing.
So even in kindergarten, we started drawing together. I started going to ASU with her to art classes, and
that's cool.
And so I've just been drawing pictures my whole life.
If I may ask, what kind of artist
is
she? What does she do?
She paints mostly, and she does a lot of craft kind of things. She has greeting cards and that she makes and things like that. She's currently on she's doing a lot of work with trees. Both of my parents are writers and poets as well. My dad writes a haiku poem and posts on his Facebook page every day, pretty much, and they're brilliant.
So needless to say, super supportive. You got a lot of your the artistic genes from mom and dad.
Yeah, art and music were very easy in my house.
Did you ever feel like you wanted to go against that?
No, in fact, in the 8th grade, I had a math teacher that told me, he literally took my sketchbook and threw it on the floor. And told me that if I kept just drawing in that all day long, I would never amount to anything. I'd never go to college, never be able to do anything.
Look at me now. Sweet I think we all have probably one of those stories.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, anytime you're playing and living outside of the box, it's hard for other people to sometimes, especially in the creative field, understand that there's a whole industry and a pretty lucrative and exciting industry across the media spectrum, and you've tapped into a number of them, from the shirt that you're wearing today with Mr. Marilyn Manson on it, doing artwork for rock stars, right? Tell us about a little bit of that, and then where that's gone on to video game in that world too.
Yeah, so I wanted to be a rock star. That's where I kind of started. My brother and I played music our whole lives. He's a bass player, I'm a drummer, and just really enjoyed that. And the goal was to see who was going to be on MTV first. I had planned on being on MTV as a musician. But
Typical sibling
That's
rivalry.
awesome.
Yeah, I get it.
That's a good goal.
Okay.
we were the MTV generation kids, you know. And I ended up, he was in a band called Authority Zero for 20 years.
Little
And
tiny band that no one's heard of.
Local legends. And
So
yeah,
they
beyond.
did have a handful of videos on MTV, but technically I was on MTV
Whatever.
first.
Technically, you were on first.
I was
okay.
in POD's video Southtown. So
Okay.
I made it
serious?
to MTV first. I did.
Wow. That's
But
That was a huge
POD,
video, man. I remember
man.
that was
So
on.
I won.
circulation.
I won.
Here comes the boom.
just
Yeah.
for the record. No, I was kidding.
That's awesome.
But
And what did you do in the video?
I was just in the crowd. I've known those guys for years and years. They invited me out
great.
to
Hyping up the sound.
Big,
That's
big,
cool.
It was a big family barbecue that they ended up
amazing.
having. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
technically, you were on MTV first.
I was technically on MTV first, absolutely.
That's bad.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
But wanting to be a rock star, and I've been in bands throughout my life, but that really didn't hit for me. So I really started trying to work with bands, and I would go to big festivals, and at the time I had, in my early 20s, I had big dreadlocks, and I just looked like a band member. So I
Dude,
would
send me that photo. The dread new metal era, like Korn and
Yeah,
BOD.
absolutely.
Yeah, man, those are my guys.
right,
man.
and so
That's awesome.
being 6'7", I would pull up to the back, like at the big Edge Fests and things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. I'd pull up to the back and I would roll down my window and say, "Hey, where's Edge staff parking?" "Oh, right through here, sir." I never said I was with
No
Edge staff.
questions asked.
So and then I would just walk around backstage and nobody ever sent me on my way.
That's
So-
like the metalhead equivalent of carrying a clipboard into an office building.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
right this way, sir.
I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Act as if, man. And like, so you've done an art in both film and music, something I've always appreciated. I think my kids will never get the full appreciation of buying, and before me, a CD. And you've got that fucking killer album art, right? Or records before that. And that was a seminal piece of the music and the album itself. Now you got iTunes and they still do them. But like you've done a wide kind of variety of art for bands from the killer shirts, but you're also doing like some guitars, and tell us about some of the other stuff you've done with bands
Yeah.
and for musicians.
Yeah, so just in general, I've worked with a handful of bands over the years, and I'm an '80s kid,
Yeah,
and
man.
so to be able to work with Dokken was really cool. That was very fun.
Rockin' like Dokken,
yeah. Did a little bit of stuff with Alice in Chains and a handful of others. Did a Korn image that ended up being used for a tour T-shirt contest or a tour T-shirt. And,
That's huge.
Yeah, just a handful of things, but of just some of my favorites,
That's
Yeah, very
awesome.
cool.
That's
Now
awesome.
so these are like huge opportunities for people.
Sure.
What got how did you get those opportunities?
I just took them.
Yeah.
I would go to these shows and I'd have a printed out portfolio and I would walk around and I would knock on every
just grinding.
trailer. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as an '80s kid, pre-social media, right? You had to hit the streets
Had
and
to be
literally
there.
be your own salesman
Yeah.
and bring physical representations of your work. So, what were some of those first instances like? And tell us about what was going through your head as you were bringing the art to these people and trying to
Yeah.
get those first gigs, right?
Right. Well, one of my favorites was Nickelback. Actually, one of my favorite stories was Nickelback. I was knocking around on all these trailers, and I just finished talking to the guys from Papa Roach, and then went over to the next trailer, and just a roadie had answered the door, and he took my portfolio and he threw it down on the inside of their trailer, and I didn't even know which band it was, and we were just visiting for a few minutes, and while that was going on, the entire band had walked out of the trailer with different pieces of my portfolio.
No kidding.
They're all amateur digital artists, so they had a lot of questions for me. It was really fun to have them
Crazy.
say, "Oh my goodness,"
Kind of kindred spirits in that
right,
respect.
right.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago at a tattoo convention, I met Twisted Insane. He's a local. Well, he's way more than local. He's on Tech Nine's record label, and I think he's the fastest Guinness Book of World Records fastest rapper in the world right now. At the time, he had the #4 hip hop track in the world when we were talking. And he came up to me and he looked at my stuff spread out on the table, my art prints, and he was like, "Wait, this is your art?" I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh my goodness." He said, "I have a mansion over here in Surprise, and I've got 40 of your pieces. You're like my
Wow.
interior decorator."
That's
and
a
while he's
warm
talking to me,
welcome,
asking
right?
me questions, people are coming up to him, asking him for his autograph. He's not even stopping talking. He's just signing the autograph and asking me questions. So
That's hilarious.
That's
he's
cool.
a super cool, really, really nice guy. One of the nicest guys I've met in hip hop. So
Wow.
That's awesome, man. And so from there, and it's kind of the neat thing for our show, Forge, like we talk to people across the media spectrum, right? You've done a little bit of work across the media spectrum. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of your artwork and some of the games that you've been involved with as well in video games.
Sure. So I started making video games professionally when I was 17 and a half. So started really early on. This was at a time where it was making the transition from stand-up arcade to home console. So there wasn't a school. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. The good old days. Yes. Pumping quarters into the machines, putting the quarter up on the glass.
Penny arcades?
Dude, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So where there's schools, I mean, they're even teaching, video game design now in high school. There wasn't a school that you could really go to, so everybody was learning at the same time. So I just I started out doing pixel cleanup on blue screen animation, and really loved that. And my goal was I've always been for the most part of my life, I've been a pretty hard worker, right? But I was always, one of the very first to be there, one of the last to leave. And I just wanted to know whoever was right above me, I wanted to be able to do what they did better than they did. And so that's what really pushed me and drove me even early on, even
that's
as
a great
late teenager.
Yeah. For advice for anyone out there listening who wants to get into any art form, right? That's amazing advice. Show up early, leave late. Try to be the hardest working guy there.
Absolutely.
That's
I don't know if you guys follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all.
Yeah.
Gary V. I start my day and end my day with Gary V.
A little inspirational Gary V.
Absolutely.
Yep. Him doing like 8 things on a treadmill next to a Lamborghini, talking about how to improve yourself.
You work hard and you work smart, and you're and you're good.
Work
harder than anybody else.
That's the strategy. Yeah.
That's awesome. So from pixel cleanup, obviously the evolution's taken you quite far, and you've done some really cool things that we know about. But tell us about some of the franchises like Halo, for example, that you've contributed to. When you told us what you did on that, and again, Big Chris, like you said, being one of the most humble guys in the world. Oh yeah, I do art. I just do some drawing. That's what I do. Dude, stop. Tell us a little bit about your contributions to the Halo franchise first, and let's go from there, man.
So I started working on the Halo franchise, I believe it was right around 2004, 2005. Max Oberman, he's the president of Certain Affinity in Austin, Texas. He was the lead designer on Halo 2 and Halo 3. And he started a company called Certain Affinity, and they started working cross-project on a lot of really cool games, Left 4 Dead, Call of Duty World at War, and then we were doing a lot with Halo 2 at the time, and then a little bit with Halo 3. And I got to come in and do design maps. So from the ground floor up, they design very, very well. They do what's called gray boxing. They make a game fun to play before it's pretty, even before they know what the architecture is going to look like. So it's literally just cylinders, boxes, triangles, and floor. You get the timing right, so you're running around in this empty world. And so right out the gate, they would send me screenshots of this empty universe. Yeah. And so my questions were, well, what is this supposed to be?
Blank canvas for you, right?
Anything you want. And that was a little bit intimidating because, being such a follower of the game, especially from Halo 1, to have to own this franchise now in a lot of ways. But it was a blast. I mean, it was an honor, actually. Bungie did an interview with me about the process, and we just went down the list. They had all these great questions, and I got to reiterate almost as a thank you to Bungie for just the opportunity. It was really cool.
Well, in those maps, man, we were talking with Steve Downs on a previous show, a Master Chief, voice of Master Chief. It's so cool because we all grew up with Halo, right? And those maps become like your living room, man.
Dude,
all the best spots,
back to front,
right?
Like,
the best places to perch, and you had an actual hand in creating those worlds. That's really cool. I mean, do you ever think about that? Like how many people have become so familiar with that? Well, whatever artwork, whatever aspect of it is, but specifically those maps, like. That's got to be kind of cool and kind of neat to.
It's awesome. I mean, for a little while, even I was trying to get away from video games because I'd been doing it for the better part of 20 years, and I wanted just to try some new things. And so I was doing Comic Cons, and I would go to these Comic Cons and hadn't said anything. A lot of times my company's called Big Chris Art, and so I wasn't even presenting myself as Chris Wood, but fanboys would do their research and they would come in with like Halo, covers or magazines, and they'd have me sign, and I'd kind of sign them on the side and then hand them back off real quick. But I mean, it was so cool for sure.
So you've worked on a number of other bigger franchises.
Yeah.
Which ones are those?
One of my very favorites was the Pirates of the Caribbean Online for Disney. It was a very interesting project. They were very dissatisfied with the way their player characters looked. So if you know anything about 3D world, they needed textures redone, but the textures are projected onto the 3D model through
so
a
you're kind of
UV map.
hamstrung a bit.
Right, exactly. So if you look at my textured paintings, they're very warped because the animations were already set. I wasn't able to come in and adjust anything or change anything. So it was a wild challenge. But I redid all of their male and female player characters over the course of about 8 weeks. And then I also did 20 articles of clothing, and it was 17, 18, 20-hour days for 6 weeks.
Well, and you crank out such a massive amount of quantity, and that's like going back to that. We're always amazed, like, wait, Chris did that too, and that, and that, and that in the same year. But like the quantity and quality that you churn out, is that something you, sounds like since you were 11, has always just been you can't stop? And I mean, or is that more something that's a work ethic you've just kind of developed where, because you enjoy it, like what drives you to do so much content constantly?
So I like to just make things. You know, one of my very favorite things right out the gate with some of the musicians that I was working with was they would make physical things I could hold in my hand, whether it was a CD or even there's one band called East West that I did an album cover for, and it's a lion, a stone lion. And they made these really cool pewter necklaces, and just the first time I had that in my hand, I was like, "Oh my goodness, people are gonna make physical things out of my stuff." So,
wow,
that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just to have something in my, that
gives you a charge,
tangible that I could touch was a blast.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to see it, I mean, you actually do art live. I mean, we have
the quick
video,
draw,
of you and Poppy working on this.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's really cool. You can visit that already on our site, but. You mentioned too, I think during that process or around that time, you mentioned something about how for you art is just a bunch of sketches or something like this. And
yeah, so if you look at my stuff, I mean, honestly, even if you kind of look at the wall close, it's literally just scribbles. Like
I love that.
I mean, you can even see in the Voltron there, it's literally just you can kind of see the scribbling.
Right.
And it's just creating that form, with just keeping it loose. I'm a drummer, so you see a lot of drummers that just kind of play with their wrists, but when you're really playing, you play with your whole body. I think about drawing in the same way, rather than just kind of drawing with your hand. You're actually drawing more with your shoulder than anything, and just keep it loose. And that's what's fun. I did a bunch of designs years ago for Fender guitar, and I would send out 5-minute rough sketches. And they would come back and they say, "Well, we really like these rough sketches, because there was just so much energy.
Like as it is, can we use these
exactly.
as they stand and put them into production?"
And
wow, man.
So I literally started doing all of my rough sketches in a very high resolution with a just in case, if they wanted, I mean, if I can make money in a 5-minute drawing, that frees up the rest of my day to do something.
Now, did you ever go to
else.
college for any of this, or?
I went to college for about 2 weeks, and then realized it very much wasn't for me. But the owner of the studio I was working for at the time, now stay in school.
Sure.
but the owner of the studio I was working for at the time had offered me a full-time job with a salary that I would have looked for had I had a 4-year art degree.
Yeah.
So I thought I would just spend that 4 years building the experience. I was on the board of curriculum for the Art Institute of Phoenix for a little while, and I would go and I would do talks and I would do portfolio reviews. And inevitably they would ask that story, and I'd be like, "Well, look, I was at a time,
right?
Well, I'm a very old man. I was at a time when it was, you really had to."
Sure, it was a different time.
Exactly.
So do you think was it your parents that kind of taught you the basics of how to draw characters or 3D, or was that just something you taught yourself over time?
It was a little of both. I mean, my parents were obviously heavily involved, but just being able to see, kind of understand what 3D space is, and I'm sure it's very similar in film. Being able to create an object, it's basically an illusion, right? As artists or filmmakers, we're illusionists.
Sure.
It's all smoke and mirrors, and so to create this, to tell this narrative, to tell this story in an image, and have that depth, is what really stood out to me. And I guess my specialty, probably more than anything, is color, just color theory, and how different colors bounce off of each other. And
interesting, yeah. And you do tattoos as well? You're also a tattoo artist?
Yeah. Yep.
So how's that going, or what's that like, or how'd you get into that?
Oh, it's awesome. So my business partner, she actually gave me some notes. Her name's Heather Moss. We own a company called we own a company called Church of Horror, and the way we met was I was doing my very first Comic-Con, and we were both sponsored by a company called Sullen Clothing out of California.
Remember them?
And so Jeremy, the owner of Sullen, had sent me a text message and said, "Hey, I saw that you're going to do a Comic-Con. One of our Sullen Angels, Heather, and her husband own a tattoo shop in Glendale. Maybe call her and see if they can, if they want to come out and help you, and we'll send you a bunch of swag you could give out. We got a bunch of hats and just giving them away." And sure enough, I sent them an email, and they both we met for lunch, and just we all hit it off right out the gate. This was, I guess, eight years ago or so at this point. And she came out and helped us with the Comic-Con, and we did really, really well just right out the gate. It was spectacularly amazing. The following weekend there was a tattoo convention, and so she had helped me that weekend, so they invited me out that following weekend. I put all my art prints out, and nobody was doing that at the time at the tattoo shows. And even while I'm putting things out, people are throwing money. And so Heather looks over and kind of sees this, and one person asked, "Hey, this Hulk here, can you freehand draw this on me and then have somebody tattoo it?" And I didn't even answer. Heather and I looked at each other, and we were just like, yep. We are going to be doing business together for a while.
Huge.
so yeah, it was. That's basically the story of how I really got back into tattooing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Just saw an opportunity and seized it. And
yeah.
That's super cool. And speaking of Heather, right? This is something you brought here for the show today. This is so freaking cool, and we got to show it off. Thank you for bringing this gift to the Forge. We got, this is Dead Zed Red, and it's a red wine, right?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about this label art. Tell us about the brand.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool when like artisans across the media spectrum, I'm going to keep hitting on that, come together and do cool shit together. And I love wine, love our cervezas as well, but it has an awesome piece of artwork on it too. And so many people are collecting wine bottles these days for the art,
sure,
as like a canvas. So tell us about that.
So this is a wine that just launched recently. Heather and I, this is one part of Church of Horror through our company. We've had the opportunity to design this wine label, and we're working on 3 others for this company called Vineyard Squadron Wines out of Paso Robles, and they're also located here. And they just gave us a lot of freedom. They said, we want to do something a little bit horror related, something with
which
a
as
zombie.
an artist you love.
Exactly.
You're like, do your thing, man.
Yep. And so we just literally that day we went back to the office, had a 5-minute brainstorm session. In 20 minutes I drew the label, and we knew that it would be a success right out the gate. And it has been. I mean, it's been really successsul.
Yeah.
Was it
so
named
far.
Dead Zed Red?
They had the name Dead Zed Red already, so
Fantastic.
they knew they wanted the zombie that was Zed, and and that's how it started.
Cool.
So
I love the character, man. He looks like he needs a glass of wine. He's had a hard day.
So Zach here, Zed's red, baby. Zed's red.
Nice.
A little tip of the hat to Quentin. Very
exactly,
nice.
exactly. Yeah, it goes exactly. It goes really well with chicken nuggets from Chick-fil-A. Maybe.
Okay, all right.
Which brings
go with
the
it.
whole
Classy.
zombie theme. You've got an app that you're working on.
Yes, yeah.
Dude, yeah. Tell us about this app. We've seen it, and it's gruesome, man. Tell us about it.
So I started a company called Crux Studios, and we're getting ready to launch, maybe in the next couple of months, an app called Thump a Zombie. And it's whack-a-mole, but it's zombies. The only difference is you can equip weapons, and you can switch between those weapons, and they do different things.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit plussed from your normal whack-a-mole, but yeah, it's a whack-a-mole with zombies.
It's amazing. Dude, there's a huge theme here of starting things and doing cool stuff. So entrepreneurship is big.
Sure.
If you could give some advice to people like that, especially in the art realm, it seems like you've really nailed a niche for yourself, and especially doing all these things, and they're very successful. What advice would you give to like budding artists that are looking to get into this trend?
And not only that, just trying to make a living.
Make a living,
themselves.
yeah.
A name for themselves and a living, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. What would you say to them?
I mean, my mantra has always been throw away your erasers. Like literally just keep going. Draw and draw again and draw again, and just keep trying things. Don't be afraid to try anything. If you start to second guess by erasing or getting too specific about something, then you've already kind of lost, or at least really you're just kind of 2 hands behind your back trying to paint a picture. So I actually did that one year. I was art director for a company in Las Vegas, and I noticed that our concept team, we had I think 6 concept artists. They were really like really struggling. So I went through, I got to work about 20 minutes early, and I went through the entire art room, and I removed every eraser out of that room. And it was just, it's time for production. Like, don't worry, don't be afraid, just try, just do, you know.
So that eraser, you kind of saw it like a crutch, right? Like
in a lot of ways,
an
yeah.
exit door for people.
And I think artists, in general, they, you know, whether you're a digital artist with your undo button or a traditional artist with your eraser, you know, take risks, take all of the risks.
Right.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, by removing the eraser, you remove that exit and that excuse. Did you also? It sounds to me kind of like you're forced to put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
part of the scariest thing as creators is like, what are people going to think, right?
Is it ever done, right?
Is it ever done? And we all reach a point in that, certainly with film and with anything, with games, with like, what's the lessons you've learned from just putting it out there and getting over that fear and getting feedback?
Right. I like to think about it that it's already done. You just have to catch up to it, you know? I love creating, you know, and I don't talk about it too terribly much, but in 2004, I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I lived 8 months in the hospital doing triple dose chemotherapy. And so at that point, you know, art and creation, it took a different perspective for me. You know, it just, not only was it an outlet, but it was a lifeline in a lot of ways. I would take prescription pages or a saline bag, and I would take a Sharpie marker and I would draw pictures on it. I would write notes. I would write poems and stories. I was going to publish a book called The Art of Cancer at one point, and just kind of take all of my illustrations and just put them out there and see what happened with it. But that you get every day you wake up, you get an opportunity to do something, to make something, and why not just do all of it? Like, try all of it, try everything.
Yeah, and I imagine, man, got close history of cancer in my family too. It puts things as an outsider through a certain lens, and makes you really appreciate the finite, you know, timeline that we all have here to create cool shit together. So I imagine, how did that affect? I mean, it seems like you already had a high degree of output, right? But did it also affect kind of the urgency behind some of your art as well? And like, what was the mood shift?
I mean, I think urgency is maybe the right words. You know, I started seeing how I could make one thing and then create a following and then build something else, but direct that following. It kind of stacked like Lego pieces, right? Where you had one piece and then you would make your next thing and build that until you're building this tower, rather than just assembling individual Legos as you go. You're building something all together.
Something great all together.
Yeah. The horror genre, you know, I like horror. I've always liked kind of darker things for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just being a metalhead growing up or whatever it is, but
I feel you.
But the horror genre became just this niche for me. And the chaotic feel of the scribbles, it just feels right. You know, I like to, when I finish a painting, my mom freaks out every time I do it, but I'll finish a painting and the last thing I do is I take it out back with my easel. I just throw paint at it. Like, I just splatter paint, you know? And she's like, you finished this thing. I'm like, no, it's just getting started. Like, I got the picture on there. Now I have to see what chaos I can add to it. You know?
That's one of the things I think we love most about your work behind us here, and just, you know, getting to know you earlier this year through mutual friends, through Ben, is like the chaos and the energy of your art. It's like, it's a living, breathing piece of artwork. Like, you can feel it in it. And I'm not just talking about the electricity coming off of Slimer behind Ben here, but like, you feel it and you're a piece of it. And you going through this, and if people can see the texture back here, all the little, like you said, little scribbles, but there's smudges of your actual fingerprints in paint on this wall that adds so much life to it, man.
When you did the water trips and everything. I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's alive, right?
Exactly.
That's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, I think that's part of the story in a lot of ways with anything that you make or write. Just the freedom of expression in that you know, I love artists that do realism. Like, it's amazing, it's gorgeous. That isn't for me, you know, because, you know, somebody that's doing realism exactly the way it is, someone else can do it exactly that same way.
Sure.
And I like just something that's a little bit different.
Has
unique.
your fingerprints on
exactly.
it. It's your style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally everything I do, like, Ben was serious, right? I throw away my brushes toward the end and I just get my fingers in the paint.
Yeah.
as much as I can, for sure.
Yeah. And so now you're with Heather right now, as far as partners in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been like a big force multiplier?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, she'll dominate any conversation that she's in.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, we were talking in the office this morning, and I said, hey, help me out, write down some things that are just some quick bullet points, just so I don't forget anything, leave anything out. And the very first bullet point was Heather Moss, queen of everything.
We've had Heather in the studio a few times. She's awesome. So shout out to Heather. And you guys are involved in like a lot. And you have so many branches of your business. You're involved in so many cool things. You brought some other cool pieces here that the Spencer's gifts, right? Spencer's shops that I grew up with as like, it was the cool before Hot Topic store. Like you get badass stuff there. You get the blacklight posters for your room of Metallica's Flaming Skull or whatever. Exactly. Your shirts are some of the best selling or are the best selling shirts in Spencer's right now. Is that right?
Between Heather and I think
cool.
we have 20 items in Spencer's currently. So,
dude,
which is awesome. And we just, in the last 3 weeks or so, we've added another 6. And so,
dang, man.
I don't even know for sure if I'm allowed to talk about this, but I'm gonna.
Oh, you're hearing it first here on Forged, ladies and gentlemen. Please do.
But it looks like they're going to take all of our pieces and they're going to compile them in all of the Spencer's in North America. They'll build a Church of Horror facade into each store.
No
and they'll
kidding.
put all of our pieces, whether they're mugs or blankets or jewelry or posters, shirts,
your own
put it
section
all
within the store.
in one spot. Yeah.
Congratulations!
Which would be
man.
awesome.
Cheers to you,
Yeah,
sir.
thanks, man.
Yeah. Indeed.
Sorry if I'm not allowed to say that, but I said it. So
it's out there now on the interwebs.
Sure.
So if you're listening, go buy a shirt at least, or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Blood
Yeah, we talk about it
Spencer's.
all the time how we wouldn't be where we're at without each other. It's just like there's so many solo artists out there, and it's like you've got to find that team.
Find your
It's
tribe,
like,
man.
When you find that team,
Yep.
it clicks,
Yep.
Yeah.
and everything just keeps moving.
I think there's also something to be said though about I completely agree, and I absolutely, but also finding yourself.
Sure.
and
Before you find the team.
Yeah, exactly. And you
Yeah.
talked about your energy, your take on things, even all the way back to the Halo story, right? About the map and just having to do that. I know there's usually a time where it kind of seems like it clicks. Do you remember anything like that, or around an era when you were doing something or a particular type of project or art where you felt like, oh, this is really Chris. I'm starting to feel like I'm into my own more of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was really around that time in Vegas at a company called Red Dust Studios where I feel like my style really came into. I started hearing people say it didn't matter what I was working on. They say, "Oh, I would have recognized that because that looks like your style."
Being recognized.
Yeah,
man,
I found that.
cool.
I found that as really comforting and exciting. That I really wanted to push. That I was going in the right direction with what I was doing, at least for me. You know, that kind of that messy scribble style. Nobody would come to me and expect me to do, some highly, realism painted image.
Yeah.
So it's kind of affirmation.
Yeah, exactly. I call it fantastic realism. So it's instead of drawing a picture of a log, it's a picture of the icon of a log, right? You see the chipped and worn pieces.
You can tell it's a log, but it's
exactly
not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have a new shirt. One of my favorite new shirts is the mafiosos around the table from Goodfellas, and obviously all the different major mafia movies, Godfather, everything combined. One of the ones you did. And that's cool, man. Like you do a bunch of cool mashups, and you've got some really neat new horror mashups. Like I saw on your Facebook, it's Where the Wild Things Are.
Yes,
you did an interpretation of it instead of the wild things and running around doing the wild rumpus dance. It's like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, and
Freddy Krueger.
Dude.
Well, when you look at go back to the original, look at the original, you can see the characters that I put. Like you can see Chucky riding on the shoulders. Like it's so cool. I was looking at the image and I was like, oh my goodness, this is. Yeah. We were in Vegas at the big licensing show, and they had we were getting ready to meet with Spencer's, and so I was just brainstorming some ideas, and I'd come up with a couple of things, and that was one of them, and they just loved it. They're going to push it right into stores even without
perfect.
Being,
now that's like say that meeting
so.
with Spencer's. Was that going into that you're like, wow, it's Spencer's and it's just me, it's this meeting, and when you met with them, were they just like dudes around a table kind of thing? Like it was very chill?
Yeah, no. I mean, the first meeting, we met maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The first meeting was a little intimidating, but now they come to our booth and they give me a big hug.
Isn't
and,
that crazy?
They're just kind of, family members now. They look forward. I go up there and I do a lot of live painting and during the big licensing shows. And that's really where it was at one of those magic events that we birthed Church of Horror. You know,
Yeah.
it was all based around an image that I'm just finishing up. It's the Last Supper with all of the horror characters.
That's so cool.
And that'll be a real flagship image for us. So
that's something that we've learned, working with brands and working with actors and as being filmmakers, you have this idea of people in your head or brands or whatever. And
You
you're
can
like,
psych yourself out.
who am I
Yeah.
to be working
Yeah.
with them or this or that? And then you end up meeting them and working with them, and it's like, oh, we're all humans.
yeah, everybody's just people.
You
Yeah.
don't stress yourself about these things because everyone's just looking to.
For the majority, they're just approachable.
Yeah.
And of course, there's going to be
Once in a
there's
while.
going to be a small percentage that's ego driven and
Sure.
it's maybe not as approachable as others. But for the most part, man, everyone, you're right, that we've approached as a fellow artist. If you're doing something cool and it has resonance with what they're doing, oh yeah, man, let's talk. Let's grab lunch. Let's get on a Skype call. And I think just putting yourself out there and getting over that fear, like we were talking about earlier, half the battle most of the time, for sure. You were mentioning your folks growing up, heavy influences and super supportive. Not everyone has that in their life, but we've heard from a lot of the creators we've had on the show so far. One of the similarities that I think is really cool is that at some point in their life they had someone who was positively influential and said, hey man, have you thought about trying this? You have the seeds of talent. Maybe they're not fully developed yet. Like you sound like you started very young, but they're like, you could do this. Have you thought about this? Or kind of push them towards a certain path in life. Outside of your folks, was there anyone like that at a critical juncture told you, dude, you're crushing it, you should keep going, or was kind of that motivational force for you?
Yeah, my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Tileman, my high school art teacher, Mr. Bevington,
Yeah.
Just people that literally said, hey, you should be doing this. Like, you should be doing this always, My high school I went to Westwood High School, and it was a little odd, right?
Yeah.
My math teacher was also the foreign exchange club teacher, and so he would trade me. I would do artwork and posters for homework assignments. I literally did not stay in school.
This wasn't the same guy.
But also use the gifts you've got to get by.
I did no work. I did no work in high school. I'm lost if I have to count. If I run out of fingers and toes.
Trading artwork for grades, were you? Okay.
That's fine. You got phones these days. They'll do
Exactly.
that. We're all
exactly.
cyborgs.
It's not like I'm working on a video game currently that deals with math.
But you're not doing the curriculum. It's okay.
There is that, yeah.
Well, that's so cool though, man. And I think like going back to being in high school too, those are crazy times, besides the hormones and like you're trying to figure out who the hell you are, what you want to do, all that jazz. Having someone come into your life and go, hey man, that's really cool what you're doing there. Like, keep going. Do you remember what it felt like? And were those junctures in your life where you could have do you ever think about that? Like, you could have gone one way, but those people kind of pushed you this way. How much of an impact did they have, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that Miss Tileman in the 5th grade specifically that I go back to remembering the most, this is the biggest story from her. She asked me to do like a Garfield with holding a pencil,
Powerful.
writing out the list. Like, I remember what that looked like on the poster board and everything. And I remember her calling my parents and saying that Chris is a leader. Like, Chris is a leader. And I remember her saying that. And so in the 5th grade, I felt the confidence to start leading, start making decisions on, even if it's in a team sport, or if it's I want to be the captain, because I promise to work harder than anybody's going to work, and I promise to bring everybody with me. That's what I've always, even going into an art team, I consulted for a while, and I would go into different studios and I would evaluate their current artists or their style guide, or even go through and help staff art teams. And I would always tell them, look, I'm not going to ask anybody on this team to work any harder than I'm willing to work.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I work really
hard. You're setting a high bar, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're all stronger together than any of us could be individually. And so we're going to corporately put this together and build something that we're going to change the way that people do things by the way we're going to do it. And that's always been, from the 5th grade, that's always been inspired, whether it's playing football or leading an art team or jumping into a wine business. We want to dominate the shelf.
Yeah.
We want people. Here's what's great about Dead Zed Red is it's a cool label and it looks good on the shelf, but it's also a fantastic wine. So what's great about it, we had a meeting yesterday with John Burke. He's one of the vintners for the wine, and And we said people are going to buy this wine the first time based on the label. They're going to come back and buy it again because of the way it tastes. And that's what's been so great. I mean, even there was a company who was telling us a story about a company. It's only in a handful of states, but it's about to be everywhere. And he was telling us yesterday about how he went into this one place and the lady looked at it. She was in charge of the wine purchases for this store. She looked at it, I hate the label. I'll take 3 cases.
That's great, dude.
Because she knows that she knows her clientele. Like she's not going to order based on her opinion. She's going to order, and she's already ordered 4 or 5 or 6 separate times now.
Right.
So,
rude, but good on her for knowing business.
No,
Hey, she knows what she likes and doesn't.
She came
That's
around.
fine.
That's
no
exactly.
problem.
Entitled to her opinion, and she's a businesswoman.
So you're a very proactive person and artist and business person.
Sure.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of people are reactive. Like, well, if only I got that opportunity, or if I'm just waiting for this one to break. But you got to go get it.
Absolutely.
Like, nothing's going to come to you.
One of my skills I found is kind of knowing, at least in the horror genre, what people are going to want before they want it.
That's some Steve Jobs right there.
Right. Well, I'll give you an example. Right. We're pushing Michael Myers heavily because obviously Halloween 40 is coming out at the end of October, and
Jamie Lee Curtis making that comeback.
Oh my gosh,
strong.
it's going to be amazing! I
Looking
can't
great,
wait.
yeah,
looks amazing,
dude.
Can't wait. It's going to be so when the new It came out a year ago. We were working directly with Warner Brothers. I do a lot of licensed horror art, which is great. Just gives a little bit more opportunity
for sure.
And I sat with Spencer's and I really pushed. I said, look, you have to get these in stores 8 weeks before the movie comes out because the trailers are going to be all over. It's going to be trending.
Spending those marketing dollars then, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they ended up waiting until 2 weeks after the movie went, and it's one of our still today. The Pennywise in there is one of our number 1 sellers.
Yeah.
Even if you just hashtag Big Chris Art on Instagram, you'll see just cute girls and good-looking dudes wearing Pennywise shirts.
Yeah.
The Hell City Tattoo Convention, the artist who was voted Artist of the Year, when he's standing up there getting his trophy, he's wearing my Pennywise shirt.
No kidding, man. That's awesome.
It was on Ghost Adventures. They had my shirt on Ghost Adventures. Just little things like that. They're so fun. And they waited until 2 weeks after the movie shipped, and they wish that they had put it in before, because now they're putting it in the front of the store. It's doing great. So now everybody's just kind of trusting me. It's like we're gonna put this in the window, is what they're gonna do now. So, so that's been, at least in the horror market. I told them that it was going to be the biggest horror movie of all time, and it is. And Halloween is going to surpass that. Like in the first year, it'll be $1 billion movie. It's just that's going to happen. So,
right.
That's awesome. So that's word to the wise out there who love their horror: buy those Michael Myers shirts fast and quick once they hit the shelves.
Or make your own prints and start selling them on your Etsy store.
No, I was talking to a guy on Instagram just a couple of days ago, and he was telling me how much he liked my Michael Myers and how hard Michael Myers is to draw, and we spent probably 20 minutes just talking back and forth. The challenge for Michael Myers is to get a facial expression with no eyes, and that's the big
window
challenge.
to the soul, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's got no soul.
Yeah, true. And so we, I love interacting with artists that are just either starting in their business or like I try to answer every email, every message that comes through.
Be careful now that you said that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't care if you have 200,000 followers or if you have 200 followers. Like, let's visit about art.
Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, I love the idea of just reaching out, grabbing it, going for it. Doing your own thing. Obviously, in this case, you were right on certain things. When you're wrong, I mean, those are also learning points too, and we talk about that a lot too. When you're proactive, that means you're setting yourself up, right? You could be successful, or you could totally fail and fall on your face. But those times also need to happen. I think you need to. I think Joe Rogan said something. You need to fail at a lot of different kinds of things in order to
fail
really
hard,
figure
fail fast, and
out,
move
right?
on, man.
True.
Yeah.
Anything like that struck you like that? That man was initially maybe it crushed you or whatever it was, and then later forged you into being for a stronger Chris Wood.
Yeah, I mean, really for me, it was a lot of the health stuff. It was just, I had just turned 30, and so I was kind of in that place. I was 29 years old and thinking I'm invincible, and now I spend 8 months in a clean room of a hospital. I don't even see people's faces. So for me, it wasn't necessarily a failure because it was out of my control, but it was one of those things that just kind of builds,
Well, as a leader, or as somebody who
Sure.
feels like a leader, like you want to be in control of things. I'm sure it really impacted you quite a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Personality-wise and so on.
And then I've been a part of studios that have just, closed overnight. The Vegas studio I was talking about, literally we showed up to a sign on the door saying that the strip mall we were working for was seized by the FBI for some stuff that was going on two shops down.
Damn, that's a whole nother podcast right there.
Exactly. But kind of going through those kind of things, and I decided in that moment, that I was going to do everything I could to place every artist that was on my team, and then I would figure out what I was going to do. And I decided in that moment, I'm going to go back to Arizona, and I am going to. That's when I got connected with Sullen. That's when my goal was to live for free. I wanted to be sponsored by a clothing company. I wanted to be sponsored by an art supply company, and I was just going to try everything. I started a line of enamel pins. I started a line of playing cards. I started doing comic book stuff.
You did
Started
playing
tattooing.
cards?
Yeah,
Dude, that's cool. That's super
I'm working
cool.
on a deck called Bad Ace Cards.
Okay.
Bad ace.
Bad ace.
Bad ace, man.
Bad ace. Dude, that's super cool. That's a huge market too, man.
If you guys are poker players,
A little bit.
For the last 5 years, I've been the executive sponsor for the charity poker tournament at Phoenix Comic Con.
Really?
And it looks like next year we'll be playing with Bad Ace Cards.
I think Forge needs to be around the table.
That's
If
pretty
we
rad.
can break into the room.
Oh, absolutely.
We know a guy now.
We'll fail miserably.
So they
Yeah.
usually give me
It'll be fun.
me
Jeremy's like,
5.
double down on everything.
I'm more of a Quidditch player.
all in. But no, they give me five free chairs for Team Big Chris Art. So come and be on my team.
Dude.
We'll lose, but
Yeah, we'll collectively take up one chair. We'll perch on it and just make
there's usually
terrible bets.
This is
200
Chris's poker face.
Yeah, exactly. That is my poker face.
I wouldn't want to play against that guy.
No, this last year was the first year that I didn't make it to the final table.
Wow.
So there's
Wow.
usually 250
Killing it.
players or so.
All right.
Dang.
He's a shark, ladies and
I
gents.
got 7 deuce 6 times in a row.
Dang.
Wow.
All right.
That's pretty dope. So is there for big goals for yourself, for example, is there any kind of IP that you'd love to work with, or bands or anything? I mean, what's like something that you think would be amazing,
Yeah.
like super amazing?
What's next
Oh,
on the
man, that's
bucket
a really
list,
great,
man?
That's a really great question. 2 years ago, my aunt asked me. It was Thanksgiving, and she asked me. She said, "If you could do anything you wanted to do, if you had a free Saturday, you had all the art supplies you wanted, you had a blank canvas on your easel, what would you do?" And I knew, I started rattling it off. Well, this one, and then I would work on this, and I would go right into this, and then she interrupted me, and she said, "Okay, let me re-ask the question. If you could do anything you wanted to do and you weren't allowed to monetize it when you finished it, what would you do?" And I'm still kind of, it's been 2 years, so I'm still kind of looking for that answer, right? I have a hard time separating. So my goal would be to find something that I just love, and just make that and just work on that. And most recently, I've been able to sort of do that. Like, there's 2 things that I wanted to do for a very long time. The Where the Wild Things Are was one of them.
Yeah.
And that was
ForgeX's
just
mural.
And
ForgeX's
ForgeX's
mural.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then I wanted to do the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction as slashers as well.
I saw.
And those 2 things, even if those things didn't get picked up, granted they did, which is awesome. But even if they didn't, those were 2 things that I was very happy to have done.
That's a different feeling too when you do something for yourself. When it's that piece of art and you're like, I'm going to do it just because I want to do it. I have no expectations monetarily, or I don't care what people say about it. This is something that's in your head and you fulfill that. That's a different kind of satisfaction.
And it's actually really, I mean, I think today, in today's age, you can be very successful with that too. I think that's what's cool. Like, I mean, if you really put it out there, whether it's films or a series and it's on Netflix, or if it's art and you're putting up on DeviantArt or all the other places that I don't even know,
to share it.
Same with games.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get them up on Steam or itch.io or whatever, and you can then you can manifest that, and then people can see that and see it for you and for who you are and what you've created, and then they'll either ask you to join their team or pay you to make more of that, and that's how you stay alive.
Exactly.
That's what you need to do.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what's next for you?
Oh man, so we have a couple of things. I was actually hoping even that I would get a text message, because I believe there's a conference hall happening now. There's some cool stuff coming, so maybe it's on the next
Okay.
We'll let you check your phone real quick.
Yeah. And we
get those
absolutely
exclusives.
hope to have Big Chris as a regular on the show too. So there'll be opportunity for more
man,
updates.
hold on,
What do we got here? What do we got on the bat
Big
phone?
text.
there is a conversation happening.
The red phone. Here we go.
They're flaming him for what he said already. 'Cause
Right.
They're watching.
This is Spencer's
talking.
corporate
So it's
headquarters.
9 a.m. on Monday.
Okay.
So that's a good cliffhanger on that note.
Maybe
then.
what I'll do is if people share this video on Forge, that I'll come through and I'll make some comments and I'll put some
There we
pictures
go.
and stuff. So,
My man.
but yeah, that should be really really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so the continued stuff with Spencer's on Hot Topic, and then branching out the wine with Bobby and Heather Moss. They own did all the branding for a company called Modern Mods. It's a piercing studio in our piercing shop at Arrowhead Mall in Glendale, Arizona, and so the idea is potentially to franchise that out into. There's a couple other malls that have been pretty desperate for that. Then the idea of relocating Timeless Art Tattoo potentially even closer to the mall, and really start to. There's a couple other things that we're doing as well with that. So really taking what we have over the next. I've been kind of just throwing around this fun just around the office. We have 2020 vision. We're going to use 2019 to really like build everything that we're doing, and then just watch that take off in 2020.
2020 is
I
your
love that.
mile marker.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's a good philosophy, man. That's long term.
Kudos for you to think that far ahead. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by then we should have, we're looking at probably 45 items, retail items, and we've got some. One of the things I'm waiting for here is it's a really cool opportunity that anybody that's into haunted type things, we'll probably see us posting about very shortly. So whether it's
you're itching to tell the world, man. I can hear it.
It's gonna be it's bigger than I can't
Okay,
wait.
we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
So, I mean, where could people go to follow you and find out more about this info and what you're up to?
Yeah, so the place I post likely the most is either on my Facebook page or on my Instagram page at Big Chris Art, or at Church of Horror. That's where we do most of our stuff. I've got a company called Monster Hotties, and we're going to be looking very shortly. We'll be announcing we're looking for 12 very specific brand ambassadors over the next year, but starting in October, to really help grow that brand, and that'll be the direct support to Church of Horror and to Dead Set Red. Well, likely once Dead Set Red is not too far away from being in Arizona. It's and when we do that, we'll have a big blowout kind of launch party, and we'll have a zombie walk and everything. I mean, we'll really go all out for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, should be really
That's
cool.
Beautiful. And now, is it just how many wines or different types of wine? Is it just the one right
So
now?
right now there's the one, and then we've got three others in the works, and then the company that we're dealing with as well. I believe they have 9 other wines, and so we may even be coming in and redesigning those brands as well, and just getting it all in one spot. So
Cool.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's
It's
epic,
exciting, man.
Yeah. And somewhere in there, you got to come in and finish this thing.
No doubt. Yeah, my hope was to have it done a week ago, but I was I had walking pneumonia, which was
man. Well,
not fun. Yeah, exactly. I should have just
some
I
cough
just downed a
syrup.
bottle of that.
There
I
you
would've been
go.
fine.
Yeah, no, it has been such a treat, man. We will continue to live stream the progress on the wall, and the hope is, granted that you have the time, that this whole place, this whole studio can become a living canvas for you and Poppy to convert these walls into the icons that you've been pulling out of a hat from our, inspirational childhood kind of movies and film and gaming, and just make this whole place your canvas. And you've given us that gift, and it's awesome, man. Like,
Cool.
it's neat to be blanketed by the artwork of Big Chris. Man.
Yeah, Poppy and I have loved doing this so much that our plan is that we'd like to go all the way around the room.
Oh,
so,
dude. Yeah.
we're not
Deal.
stopping you.
No argument.
Yep. We'd love to take 80s and 90s and go into 90s, early 2000s, all the way into let's go to the future.
The
That would be
future.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. No, we love having you guys here.
Cool, man.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, this has become a second home in a lot of ways. So
Good.
Good.
We'd
That
love
was
to
our
hear
hope.
that.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot
For us
of
too.
Big Chris's work on Max Reload too. He's doing some really exciting stuff.
Ooh, this is the first time we're breaking that news, isn't it?
What's
It
Max
is.
Reload?
Don't worry about it.
don't worry about it. Want to find out?
MaxReloadMovie.com.
That's
It's our
right.
feature film in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a
it's
vlog
neat.
that we have that's in the works for all that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yeah, and it's cool because the whole movie, for those who don't know, as if we don't talk about it enough, right? It's about retro gaming, and it spans the retro Atari, ColecoVision age all the way up through contemporary gaming.
To mobile gaming.
And with Chris's pedigree, like, it's been a godsend, and now that we're in post-production, to have you come in and putting your thumbprint on the art that's in the movie as, like, the label for the Coleco game, and otherwise on the poster. Like, we can't wait to leak that.
Yeah, it's been so fun.
Woo.
I mean, all of it's been such a blast.
It's badass,
you know, just
man.
just in the last couple of years, I've been getting more into the movie industry, and even to answer your earlier question, I think if I could literally be doing anything, it'd be storyboarding for movies. Like, that's
you will
so
storyboard our
fun.
next movie.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, sold. Yeah, we made the mistake of doing stick figures ourselves on the last movie, and it was
Stick
not.
figures?
Yes, those went out the window pretty quick. But no, man. Yeah, we would absolutely love to talk to you more
Cool,
about
man.
that, and we've been talking offline about some other projects. So
Could use stickers.
more fun and collaboration to be had for sure. But yeah, man, anything else you want to leave? I think what we like to leave these episodes of the show with is, for anyone who's watching now or into the long distant future on the interwebs, what would you say to those artists right now who are considering a career in your arts?
So one of my best friends, Dennis, he has this hashtag that he uses over and over again, and it's just hashtag make stuff. Just try it. Just make stuff. Like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to get dirty. Don't be afraid to spill beer on the table. Don't be afraid, whatever. But just try it. Just make things. And I try to draw literally every day, and sometimes those things never see the light of day. But but there have been times where I've had to go back 2.5 years and pull something out and be like, oh, we're going to use this for this. I'm at a place in my career right now that the last 20 years are all coming into one space. That's why I called my app company Crux. It's one crux. It's one meeting point where everything happens.
That's cool.
And if you miss that opportunity to have made something, it's like skipping steps. It's skipping stairs. My philosophy in business and life is to build toll booths that people put quarters in, and then when that toll booth is done, I move down the same road and I build another toll booth. So that way, as people drive down the road of my life, as customers, as an entrepreneur, people are putting quarters along that toll booth. And if you skip a space, then the rest of your career, the rest of the things that you have built, your audience is going to be confused.
Yeah,
it's like taking a stick and putting it in the middle of an ant line. There's a perfect pattern, a perfect line, and then they just scatter. They don't know what to do. So yeah, just make things. Don't be afraid to make things.
right. Because one of those things could be something that you use
Absolutely.
later and open a huge door.
It's true.
And it makes you a better artist.
It's true.
Yeah.
Beautiful philosophy, man. Well, thank you
man.
for sharing. Thank you for the
course.
gift here at the Forge. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your story and inspiring others, hopefully. And yeah, man, looking forward to having you back in this seat and in the studio with paintbrush in hand very soon.
Cool, man. Absolutely. I can't wait.
Thanks.
Right on, brother.
Thank you.
That's it for Forge this kind, guys. We're signing off, and we'll see you again in roughly a week.
Cheers to you.